So I'm going to just give it a couple seconds before we get started because, like I said, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. Okay, I think we're live now. So, 3, 2, 1. This is Josh from BatYard Productions, introducing pop culture, everything in between. And we have a special guest today. Callie, if you want to take over.
Hi, to Gary Wolf, the brilliant creator of Roger Rabbit, to explore the imagination and inspiration behind his iconic toon-filled universe. So, our first question for Gary is just how did you get started writing?
Oh, good question. It all started back in the second or third grade. I can't remember exactly, but I come from a very small farm town in Illinois, a place called Earlville, and there were only like 25 kids in my class. So uh, the second or third grade teacher gave us an assignment, and it was a coloring assignment. We had to take a picture home and color it. And the whole object of the lesson was to stay inside the lines. Okay. So I took this picture home and I got out my crayons and I took a look at it. And it was a typical farm scene. There was a farmhouse, a barn, a wooden fence, a meadow, and one cow out in the middle of the meadow. So, nobody was better at staying inside the lines than me. So I'm going to ace this test. So I colored the fence brown. I colored the farmhouse yellow because that's the color farmhouses were around Earlville. Colored the barn red. Colored the grass green. I get to the cow, and I'm looking at that cow all by itself out there in the middle of the meadow, and I'm thinking, what a lonely cow. And my mom had always told me that when people were all by themselves, they got sad, they got lonely, and they were blue. So I said, works for people, must work for cows. So I colored the cow blue. I passed it in to my teacher the next day. The day after that, she handed them all back except mine. She said, Gary, she says, come up here to the front of the class. So I said, oh my God. I stayed inside the lines better than anybody. She says, Gary, turn around and face the class. And I'm facing the class and I'm smiling. And she held that picture up over my head and she said, class, look at this stupid picture.
Oh, no.
She said, everybody knows that cows are brown, cows are white, cows are black. Sometimes cows are brown, white, and black, all three. She says, there is no such thing as a blue cow. Gary, don't you ever do anything that stupid again. And she called my mom. And my
Wow.
mom had to go to school and talk to the teacher who told her, I think there's something wrong with Gary. He colored a cow blue. So that night, my folks called me into the living room, right? And my mom and my dad sat me down, and my mom said, Gary, why did you color that cow blue? And I said, Mom, it wasn't me. It was you, really, because you were the one. You told me that when people were sad and lonely, that they got blue. So I colored the cow blue. And so my mom said, you go outside and play for a little while. Your dad and I have to talk about this. So I went outside, and you got to understand, I didn't think this was going to have a good ending because my mother and father, my dad had to drop out of school in the third grade to go to work during the Depression at a third grade education. My mom made it to the eighth grade. She had to drop out of school and go to work. My dad ran the pool hall in that town. My mom worked in the school cafeteria. So these were not what you would call upscale, well educated urban liberals. I mean, these were hard scrabble working folk. And even as a kid, I didn't think that this was going to turn out very well. But after about 10, 15 minutes, they called me back in. And my mom says, Gary, your dad and I talked about this, and we decided the next time you want to color a cow blue, you go ahead and color a cow blue.
That's cool.
She called my teacher, said, hey, next time he does something like that, let him.
Yeah.
He's creative.
Right.
So about 2 weeks later, I got another assignment from that teacher, and it was to write what you did on your summer vacation. And so the kids were writing, I went to the Earlville Lake, I went to Shabna Park, I went to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, I went up to Wisconsin Dells. And I wrote a paper on how I went out in my backyard and I used tin cans, aluminum foil, string, and I built a rocket ship and flew to the moon.
That's
And
great.
she passed that back and didn't make a comment except she said, "Well, that must have been a very interesting trip." So, that was the start of it. The other thing was, again, my mother. My mother was a terrific mother. All kids should have a mother like this. My mother pulled me aside one day and said, if you want to get out of this town and you don't want to wind up growing up and running your father's pool hall, the one thing that you can do to make that happen is to read. Just read, 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 and that will get you out of this town. So I read, I read whatever I could get my hands on, but, I was a kid. So what did I read? I read comic books. I read Batman, Superman, whatever I can get my hands on, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, anything. I'd go to the B Street Smoke Shop in Earlville, and I'd read all the comics I could read before he kicked me out, and then I'd use my allowance to buy a few for myself, and I'd trade those with my friends. And uh, that's what I read. I read comic books, and my mom, bless her heart, never once said, "Don't read those. They'll make you stupid." You should read fine high class literature. No, anything you read was fine with her. And the other thing I read was what my father read, and my dad read what they call true crime magazines, which don't exist anymore, thank goodness. But these were magazines in the 40s and 50s that published articles about true crimes, always
Wow.
murders. And if you saw a movie called Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, um, Jude Law played a photographer who was based on a real life photographer called Weegan, who used to go to crime scenes and get there before the police. And he would rearrange the corpses so that they were more photogenic and then
Oh
take
wow. Tampering with evidence right there.
magazines. That was what I was reading because that was what my dad read, and they were all over the house, and I read them too. And again, my mom never said, "Hey, don't read those; they'll rot your brain." Luckily, I I discovered a higher class of crime fiction, and I started reading Jim Thompson and Dashiell Hammett, Mickey Spillane, the good crime writers. But that was my influence, and my other influence. That small town had a movie theater, and I used to go to that theater every day because it only cost 10 cents. And I went every single day and I saw every single show. And I was fascinated by the cartoons that played before the features, and I saw Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Woody Woodpecker, Heckle and Jekyll. Uh, and I came to love cartoons. So if you take those things and put them all together, you've got comic books, comic strips, cartoons, and noir mysteries. Sounds a whole lot like Roger Rabbit.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I'm just putting it all in my head, like just how you're watching cartoons, but then created such a famous one yourself. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
I got a contract from Doubleday for 4 books. It was a 4 book deal, and I could write anything I want. They loved me, so I wrote a book called Killer Bowl, which was about life in a dystopian world where football is played outdoors 24 hours and is a blood sport. People kill each other. Um, and that's still my most famous book in the science fiction community. People know me for Killer Bowl. Then I wrote A Generation Removed. Then I wrote The Resurrectionist. And for my 4th book, I wanted to push the envelope. All right. I wanted to do something that nobody had ever done before. And I wanted to incorporate the loves of my youth: comic books, cartoon strips, and noir mysteries. So I was watching Saturday morning cartoons one Saturday morning for research. I told my wife, I'm watching these just for research. And I, I didn't like the cartoons much. They were pretty simplistic and badly drawn. But I was fascinated by the commercials because I saw cartoon characters like the Trix Rabbit, Captain Crunch, Tony the Tiger, Snap, Crackle, and Pop. Cartoon characters talking to real kids and nobody seemed to think that was odd.
Right.
And I said, what a great idea that would be for a book. What if you had a world where cartoon characters were real? What kind of a world would that be? So I developed the characters, Roger Rabbit. I wanted a kind of a Disney rabbit, even though this was way before my association with Disney.
Right.
I wanted a kind of a Disney rabbit. Jessica was the epitome of I based her on Marilyn Monroe, Betty Grable, Veronica Lake, who wore her hair over her eye,
Mm.
and Rita Hayworth. But she was mostly the girl I would have dated in high school if I had been able to get a date, because in my school, the boys outnumber the girls by 35 to 1.
Oh,
So, good luck getting a date if you're the president of the Checkers Club, right? So, this was my ideal girl. Baby Herman, I based on a lot of grown up baby characters that were in comic books and cartoons in the 30s and 40s. There was Baby Huey, and there were a bunch of them. And Eddie Valiant was just the prototypical LA private eye. I named him Eddie after my father to thank him for all of those trashy crime books he let me read when I was a kid. And, I wrote the book, and it was clearly the best thing I'd ever written. So I sent it off to my editor at Doubleday, and they took a long time with it for some odd reason. And then she wrote me back and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but we've rejected your book." And I'd written 200 short stories and 3 novels, never had a reject. And they rejected what I thought was the best piece of writing I'd ever done. So
right.
I called her. I said, "Sharon, why did you reject this?" And she said, "I love this book, but it's so different from anything you've ever written before. It's so different from anything anybody's ever written before that I had to send it to the marketing department. And they were the ones who rejected it." And so I called the head of the marketing department. I said, "Chuck, why'd you reject my book?" She says, "Oh, we all thought it was really good, really hilarious, but it doesn't fit into any category. There's no place for this on the bookstore shelves. I can't sell this book. It's not a regular mystery. It's not a children's book. It's not a real fantasy. There's no category for it. I can't sell this book." So I talked to my agent, and I said, "Look, if I can't sell this book, I don't want to be a writer anymore, because this is what I want to write." And he said, "Oh, don't worry. Wonderful book. We'll find a home for it." So he started sending it out to other publishers. And sometimes different editors at the same publisher. And along the way, it accumulated 110 rejects. It was rejected 110 times, always for the same reason. There's no category for this on the bookstore shelves. We can't sell this book. In those days, you got rejects by mail. Email hadn't been invented yet, so you got them by mail. And my wife used to call my trips out to the mailbox every night the daily disappointments, because I would come back with a fistful of rejects on my book. And so finally, the book made it to an editor at St. Martin's Press, a young woman named Rebecca Martin. And she had just published a big bestseller for them. And so the president of the publishing company, told her that she could have a vanity project. She could publish whatever book she wanted. Just pick one and they would publish it. So my book came across her desk and she loved it. I mean, editors all loved it. So she loved it. So she took it directly to the president of the company and said, "Here, this is the book I want to publish." He said, "Okay, I'm going to take it home. I'm going to read it tonight. Get back to you in the morning." So he took it home, came back in the morning, called her into his office and said, "Rebecca, I said you could publish any book you wanted, but you can't publish this because I can't sell it. There's no category for this on a bookstore shelf." And Rebecca stepped up to the plate and swung the bat and hit a home run. And she said, "Look, you said I could publish any book I wanted. Publish that or I quit."
Wow.
Yeah, they published it. Although in very, very small
That's
quantities,
amazing.
like 5,000 copies, which is nothing. Okay, nothing. And eventually it became a Doubleday book club edition, which was like 20,000, and then Ballantine picked it up and it went into 16 printings as a paperback. But that first print run was 5,000 copies. And people ask me, if you had a time machine and you could go back and change anything in your life, what would you change?
Mm. Yeah.
I would go back and I would buy all 5,000 of those copies and I would put them in a barn somewhere because now if you can find one on eBay, they're all north of $500. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I'm
it
sure
Yeah,
they are, especially
I
98.
can imagine.
yeah.
So so that was a story. That was where it came from.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
that
um,
was.
so I know you went into like your inspiration for Jessica Rabbit and other characters, but did you have like an inspiration per se for like Roger Rabbit for like his mannerisms or any other characters that kind of like came into your life?
Nah, like I say, I wanted him to be a kind of a goofy Disney kind of rabbit
All
who
right.
had a good heart, and I dressed him like you pretty much see him. I dressed him in red overalls, a bow tie, the yellow gloves, pretty much like you see him. Same with Jessica. Um, when I started working with Disney on the movie, I sat down with Dick Williams, who was the lead animator, and uh, like I say, I'm a writer. I'm not an artist, and I had seen them in my head, but I'd never drawn them, and I couldn't
Right.
can't draw them. So Dick worked with me to visualize what they looked like. And I mean, Dick's a genius. I mean, he won the Academy Award for the Pink Panther. I mean, and for Roger Rabbit later. So,
Right.
guy was a genius, and he worked with me to determine what they looked like and how to design them so they would look good on the screen. He was the one who added the little orange top knot to give Roger a little bit of color. In the book, Roger was a brown rabbit because um, nobody had a brown rabbit. I mean, Warner Brothers didn't have a brown rabbit. Disney didn't have a brown rabbit. So I figured I'm going to do a brown rabbit. But Dick felt that a white rabbit would pop off the screen better, and I didn't have an objection to that. So I had never heard him speak. He spoke with word balloons in the
Yeah.
book. If you
Right.
read the book, they're comic strip characters, not cartoon characters,
Mhm.
and they speak with word balloons, which I had a lot of fun with. If a cartoon character talks to you, he puts up a word balloon, and you don't talk to him, you read it. And if he turns around, then the word balloon turns around, and you got to either learn to read in reverse or you got to go to the other side of him. And I had a lot of fun with that. If somebody gets shot with a tuned gun, produces a bang balloon, and
Right.
bang balloons are very fragile. They'll fall. They're like a china plate, and they'll break. And then forensics has to come in and reassemble the bang balloon. And then once you've got the bang balloon reassembled, you find the gun and put up another bang balloon where you can compare the two bang balloons, and if they match, that's the gun. And when somebody plays the piano, the notes go drifting off, and people collect those notes and cut them into 8 by 12 sheets, and that's where sheet music comes from. So, I had a lot of fun with that, but um, that meant that I had never actually heard, even in my head, the characters talk. So we worked a lot on what they should sound like, and Charlie Fleischer. We've people told us you should go see Charlie Fleischer. He's really good. So we went to see Charlie Fleischer. He was doing a bit in a comedy club. Charlie Fleischer, if you don't know him, was the guy that replaced John Travolta on Welcome Back, Kotter. He did a lot of bit parts in a lot of movies. He was actually in Back to the Future as a newsman. He was never a star, but he did a lot of stuff. And in his movies, he didn't do much voice work. He just did acting work. Well, we went to see his comedy show, and he did this bit about Donald Duck having an orgasm. And this guy is amazing. This is amazing. This is so funny. So we brought him in and worked with him on the voice. And he was the one, Dick Williams felt that every major cartoon character had some kind of a speech impediment. Porky Pig with his stutter, and Sylvester the cat with his.
Right.
They all had some kind of a speech impediment. So we worked we worked on speech impediments for Roger, and it was Charlie who came up with the 3-piece stutter. We actually standardized on the 4-piece stutter, so um, that was where that came from. Jessica came pretty easily. I mean, Dick just drew some glamour girls and said pick one, and that was pretty much it. I mean, Jessica was easier than Roger was. Um, Oddly, Jessica was the hardest character for the animators to draw
Mm.
because the animators were used to drawing pigs and ducks and geese and cows and rabbits and
Oh.
Oh
Oh, we
no.
lost our special guest.
Oh no.
I was really getting into that too. Well, let me see before we. I don't know what happened.
I get this message real quick.
Excuse me. All right, Callie, you have to keep everyone entertained.
Um,
Charles Fleischer. He was. Oh, he was the mechanic in Back to the Future. That's what I know him from that too. Mm,
he
um.
rents the car.
Yeah, you are back. Okay, hold on. We just gotta wait a couple seconds.
I don't know. I don't know what.
Yeah, that was weird. We never had that happen before.
Like I tell like I tell my wife when we're watching TV, and I take the remote and I put it down next to my beer, and the TV goes off. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
No, that's okay. Sometimes this program does get like a little weird. We never had anything like that happen before, but
I've
I'm
never had
sorry.
anybody with my electric personality. Is what.
Yeah, exactly.
So the animators were used to animating barnyard animals, and here they were being asked to animate not just a woman, but the essence of woman, the perfect woman, and they just couldn't get it right. So Bob Zemeckis, the director, we were filming in London because they had a sound stage there that was 3 levels high. They didn't have one of those in the United States. They do now, but they didn't then. And the on the bottom level were video monitors that Bob Z, the director, and Steve, if he was around, would look at to see what was being filmed. On the second level were puppeteers who had puppets that they would manipulate through holes in the floor. And on the third level was the actual set. Okay. So the animators just could not get this right. So Bob Zemeckis went down to a strip club in London's West End or East End or whatever end the strip clubs are, and hired an exotic dancer, a stripper, and brought her back and filmed her doing Jessica's dance,
Oh
wearing a red
wow.
dress, live action, and then filmed her in broad panties doing the same thing, and then filmed her naked doing the same thing, right? So that the animators could get a sense of what a woman
Yeah,
looked like.
how she moved.
And
Yeah.
for weeks after that, you could hear the animators saying, "Oh, geez, I've been at work so long, I forgot what a woman looks like. Let's watch the film again." They the one of the reasons why Jessica has such shall we say odd proportions, the teeny tiny waist and the big everything else's, um, is because Dick Williams wanted to make sure that other animators who saw this movie knew that she wasn't being what they call rotoscoped. And
Oh right.
rotoscoping is a perfectly acceptable animation technique. You film somebody doing something, and then you basically trace over them. In Cinderella, when Cinderella and the Prince are dancing, it's actually Marge Champion
Mhm.
and some male dancer doing that. When in Snow White, a lot of the motions of Snow White are rotoscoped, but you're kind of limited to human form in doing that. And he wanted people to know that they did not rotoscope Jessica. So
Mhm.
that's why she has such a teeny tiny waist and such odd proportions, so that they know that she was animated. The other thing that Dick wanted to do was to show that this was really an animation tour de force. If you watch the opening cartoon in Roger Rabbit, Dick Williams animated that entire cartoon himself.
Oh
Now,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, and the thing he did to make it even more difficult for himself, if you look at the floor of the kitchen, the floor is black and white tile. Now, there's no reason why that has to be black and white tile. That could be a plain white floor. By making it a black and white tile, every single cell, and there are 24 cells per second, every single cell changes the perspective on every single tile. So he has to redraw every single tile 24 cells per second.
Wow.
And he had to do it in black and white. And then to make it even harder, he put Roger's reflection into it.
I
So
do remember that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's
it's incredible.
crazy.
The other bit of animation esoterica from that movie, and this, I mean, you would never even notice this, but in the scene where Eddie, Dolores, and Roger are in the back room at the terminal bar, and I think it's Roger bumps the lamp,
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
lamp starts going back
Mhm.
and forth, and the shadows move back and forth over Roger, and Roger's shadow moves back and forth. And it's an incredibly complex bit of animation, incredibly complex, and is so complicated that now when animators do a really hard piece of animation, they call that bumping the lamp.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that honestly, like just depicting the lighting changes on the actual physical set and then the animated character and have it match, like even if it was just a still light, that's very
Yeah,
complex to do. And then to have the light move with it,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
amazing. It's fantastic. Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, so like when you first got a call from Disney, I know it was like a production gap from when you had that phone call. If I'm remembering correctly, to when the movie was actually made, it was
Yeah,
like
I got
like
the phone
production.
call. I got the phone call in 1980, and the
Mhm.
book had not come out yet. The book didn't come out until 81. I'd sold it, but it hadn't come out. And I got this call at home on my home phone. And the guy on the other end says, "Hey, is this Gary K. Wolf?" I said, "Yeah, it is." He says, "Hi, this is Roy Disney from the Disney Company." Yeah, right. Roy Disney calling me at home. That's going to happen. Who is this really?
After all these
No,
rejection letters.
it's really Roy Disney. And I'm wondering if you'd be interested in letting us make your book, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, into a movie. I said, that book hasn't even come out yet. How'd you see the book? Well, it turned out that somebody at St. Martin's, never found out who, I tried because I wanted to kiss her or him full on the lips. Somebody at St. Martin's sent a copy of the manuscript to Disney and said, "Here, we're going to publish this book, and we think you'd be interested in it." And it turned out they were. So it was 1980, and Disney was not the powerhouse that Disney is today. In fact, they were on starting a long downhill slide. They were making movies that were meant to be the second half of a double feature, and there were no more double features. They had made the Nutty Professor, um, the Shaggy Dog, the the black hole, the black cauldron, which disappeared down the black hole, uh,
Right.
and they
Right.
Yeah.
hit, get it hit. So they saw Roger Rabbit as that movie that would catapult them back into the forefront of movie making and make them a major studio again. And the other thing, they wanted the characters because their stable of characters was getting a little stale. They had Mickey, who was kind of like the corporate spokesmouse, and they couldn't really have fun with him. They had Donald. They could have fun with Donald, but nobody could understand what he says. So
Right.
he was kind of out. So they wanted Roger, Jessica, Baby Herman. They wanted them as characters for, toys, balloons, sweatshirts, whatever. I mean, Disney makes a ton of money selling merchandise. So they 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 offered me more money for the rights to this than I'd made on everything I'd written put together. $35,000, which was all the money in the world. And
Right. But compared to what Roger Rabbit became,
yeah,
it's such a small
and
amount.
so I my agent said to me, he said, that's a lot of money. He said, but he said it's probably not going to be a movie because most of them aren't. This is Disney. Um, what else do you want from Disney? And I said, how about this? I said, how about 2 lifetime passes to Disneyland? And he said, well, I'll try. So um, he said to Disney, he also wants 2 lifetime passes to Disneyland. And that became the hardest part of the negotiation because,
Wow.
because the accounting people said, wait a minute, lifetime pass? What if he goes every day? It's going to wind up costing us hundreds of dollars. And finally, Roy Disney said, just give it to him. Give it to him. So they gave me 2 lifetime passes to Disneyland and $35,000 and got the rights to my characters. And, I didn't think the book was filmable. I didn't think that they could make this movie and stay true to the vision I had of it. And for the first 5 years, they pretty much proved me right. They really couldn't. They tried doing live action animation, couldn't really make it work. And admittedly, there was technology that came later. There was technology that was invented for this movie that made the whole movie possible that didn't exist back then. So they were not going to succeed. And finally, Roy came to me and said, we're not having any luck doing this as a live action animated movie. What would you think if we did it with the cartoon characters wearing costumes like they do at Disneyland? And I'm thinking, oh, geez, I'm
Yeah.
going to have the Fred McMurray as Eddie Valiant. I'm going to have Haley Mills as Jessica. Kurt Russell as Baby Herman.
Right.
Doesn't that compromise the principles just a little bit? And
Defeats the purpose of it. Yeah.
In 1985, a bunch of stuff happened. Roy got forced upstairs, and a guy named Michael Eisner came in, and he brought with him Jeff Kassenberg as his head of production, and they had worked together at a lot of studios and produced a lot of movies, and they threw out every project that Disney had in production, all except for Roger Rabbit, which was the one thing that they knew they had to do. So they did something that Disney had never done before. They brought in an outside producer to produce this movie, a little-known guy named Steve Spielberg.
Right.
And, Steve came on board. And once Steve Spielberg comes on board with your project, things start to happen immediately. As an example, in 1982 or 83, Roy Disney went to Warner Brothers and said, hey, we're making a live-action animated movie. We'd like to use Bugs Bunny in a cameo. He would just be on screen for long enough to say, what's up, Doc, and eat a carrot. Can you do that? Can you give us those rights? And Warner Brothers looked at Roy Disney and said, get lost. Get lost. There's no way that Bugs Bunny is ever going to be in a Walt Disney picture. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So 5 years later, Steven walks into Warner Brothers and makes the identical request. Can we use Bugs Bunny in a cameo? And I said, of course, Steven, take him. What about Porky Pig? What about Sylvester and Tweety? What about Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote? Take them all. So Steve got them all. And the only codicil was that Bugs Bunny, being a superstar, had a contract. Bugs had to be in every scene with Mickey Mouse. You could not have Mickey Mouse in a scene without Bugs because they were co-equal superstars. And they had to have the exact same number of words of dialogue.
Right. Yeah, and they had to share the same time on screen.
So the other thing, and I just found this out recently, but uh, Warner Brothers also wanted to use the 1986 characters, and the Disney people wanted to use the 1940 characters. There's a difference. If you look at Bugs Bunny, he doesn't look anything at all today like he did in 1940. Neither does Mickey Mouse. Neither does neither does Donald Duck. But the Warner Brothers characters look different in 1940 than they did in 1986. And Warner
Right.
Brothers wanted to use the 1986 characters. Disney wanted to use the 1945 characters. So they did two versions. They did the one version with the 1986 characters, one with the 1945 characters. They showed the one with the 1986 characters to Warner Brothers and put the 1945 characters in the movie. And the first Warners knew of it was when they saw the movie.
Wow.
And they exploded.
I didn't know that.
45. But then the movie was such a smash hit and got such good press, and that they realized, well, wait a minute, we can start selling dolls with the 45 characters as well as the 86
Yeah, at the
characters.
same time.
The Disney animators basically hated Warner Brothers because they were so hard to work with. So there's something called gags in the margins. And a gag in the margin, I remember I told you they animate 24 frames a second.
Right.
So animators can pretty well fool around with 6 of those frames, and the human eye can't see them. All right, so they put little hidden gags in, little drawings that go by so fast you can't see them.
Right.
When Eddie Valiant is in the bathroom and the floor drops out, if you freeze frame on that, you'll see in 2 frames it's written on the bathroom wall, "For a good time, call Snow White." All right.
Oh, wow.
Underneath is Michael Eisner's home phone number. Okay.
That's wild.
There's tons of those. So you can call Michael tonight and he'll confirm that.
That's amazing.
So they wanted something to get back at Warner Brothers. So when Mickey and Bugs are parachuting down, they wanted in 6 frames, they wanted Mickey to give Bugs the finger. Okay, boom. Now, the animation studio in London, and Dick Williams had brought in a worldwide group of animators. He brought in a lot of animators from Russia and the former Iron Curtain countries when they fell apart. He brought in Spanish, Italian. It was like a Tower of Babel. I mean, there were so many languages being spoken. And so, in order to speak to the Ukrainian guy, you had to speak to the Italian guy, you would speak to the Spanish guy, you would speak to the, Yugoslavian guy, you would speak to the Ukrainian guy, and then we'll go back again. So I can't remember who did that scene, but it was conveyed like that through 4 people. Mickey gives Bugs the finger. Okay. So the movie finally came out and we took a look at it. The guy had gotten it exactly back asswards, and it was Bugs giving Mickey the finger, which was entirely the wrong message. So, the movie came out. It was the highest grossing movie of the year, best reviewed movie of the year. And, the premiere was at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, so that I didn't have to go to LA. So I was in the VIP section, sitting there with Kathleen Turner, who was the speaking voice of Jessica on my right, on my left, and Amy Irving, who was Steve's wife at the time, and was the singing voice of Jessica. Because for some reason Kathleen couldn't sing when it came time for her to sing. She was pretty pregnant. Maybe it was voice control. Maybe she just can't sing. I don't know. Amy Irving did the singing, so I was sitting there between 2 of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And I'm going to see my movie all the way through for the first time. I'm going to see my credit on screen for the first time. And I'm thinking to myself, life doesn't get any better than this. And then life got better because Kathleen put her hand on my leg and leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Are you excited?" And I said, Kathy, you have no idea.
That's awesome. That's such a great story. Yeah, I can't even imagine how that feels to see your creation go through, novel to this whole production, which probably took so much time to like even create this movie to finally see it on the big screen.
Yeah, and the most satisfying part of it, there have been other authors who've had that happen. I mean, I have many friends who've had their books turned into movies, uh, but the movies turned out to be not very good. And the best part of this was the movie was great. I
Right.
mean, it was an incredible movie, and I'm over the moon. I couldn't be happier with it. So all in all, happy guy.
Yeah, I was curious what your thoughts were. I know there's a lot of changes from the book with the tea kettle and the word balloons, which would have been kind of hard to translate on film. Um, like, how did you feel on initial changes from the book to
Well,
screen?
they,
Like,
they tried they tried using the word balloons, and it just didn't work.
Mm,
It turned it into a silent movie. They would put up a word balloon, and the audience would have to read it. It was a silent movie. It obviously wasn't going to work. Um, you have to if you want to make a living writing, and you want to be a professional writer, you have to realize that there comes a time when somebody is going to take your work and translate it to a different medium.
hmm
They're going to make a TV series out of it. They're going to make a movie out of it. They're going to make a stage play out of it. They're going to do something with it,
Right.
and it's going to change. And you're going to get paid for this. And if that's the way you want to make a living, then you have to be okay with it. I was lucky that, and my feeling is that the book's a book and the movie's a movie. They're both great.
Mhm.
People who read them both say, "Oh yeah, the book's better than the movie." Some people say, "Oh, the movie's better than the book," but they're both great. And I was involved in changing the story. I knew the story had to change because the book story is not a movie story, and I knew that was going to have to change. And I was involved in all of it. It wasn't like I went to the premiere and said, "Oh my God, what is this?" I knew it all, so I didn't have a problem with that.
Oh, Callie, we can't see you anymore. But I'm gonna keep going. So I know. Oh, there you are. So I know you mentioned Charlie Fleischer, the voice of Roger Rabbit. Does he have? I know you mentioned also rotoscoping. Does he have any relation to the Fleischer studio
No, not at
music?
all. It was just a kind of a happy coincidence. The other character that I based Jessica on actually was a Fleischer character called Red Hot Riding Hood.
Oh, right.
And if you look at the Red Hot Riding Hood cartoons, which are on YouTube, you can go right from here to the Red Hot Riding Hood without a break and watch the Red Hot Riding Hood comics. Swing Shift Cinderella and Wild and Wolfie, I think, are the ones I remember. But you will see that Jessica that Red Hot in those looks a whole lot like Jessica. She's got the little narrow waist
Mm.
red dress, although hers is like a mini dress. She's a chorus girl. She's got the same red hair, although her hair is up. And I was greatly influenced by her when I was writing the book.
Hmm.
And Dick Williams was influenced by her when he was doing the design for her. So yeah, but no, Charlie's no relation. It's a happy coincidence.
Yeah, for sure. No, exactly. So I'm on in the understanding that you recently received the rights back for Roger
Yeah,
Rabbit. Is this true? How did that go about?
yeah, I did. Been working on it for about 6 years. Um, it came about because I wrote a 12 episode TV series set in a jazz bar in Toontown called Uncle Poots, and the series was called Harry Wolf, Hairy, Harry Wolf. Um, and my producer got a lot of interest in that from TV networks, but he kept coming back with the same question: Does he have the right to use Toontown? This was all new characters, none of my Roger Rabbit characters, all my characters, but they wondered, did I have the right to use Toontown? So I asked my attorney, do I have the right to use Toontown? He said, oh, so you got to go to an intellectual properties attorney for that. So went to an intellectual properties attorney, and a young woman, and she looked at it, and that question never did get resolved. But she came back and said, I was looking at your contract, and you're eligible for rights reversion under the 35-year law. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, after 35 years, you can write to the Library of Congress and get back the rights to your characters. And I said, you mean I can get the rights back from Disney? And she said, yeah. I said, that's impossible. That's never going to happen. It's impossible. She says, no, it's a law. You can do it. So I investigated it, and it turns out that, yes, indeed, it is a law. Um, you have to submit a letter to the Library of Congress saying I want the rights back on this date, and it has to be a day exactly 35 years after you sold the rights. If you go a day late or a day early, you're out of luck. This should be the exact day. And it's a very simple letter, one-page letter. And so I hired an attorney who specialized in rights reversion. And they did the whole process and came up with a date. Said, all right, here's the date, and here's the letter. So I said, I still don't believe it's possible. So I hired another attorney who also specialized in rights reversion and had him do the same thing. And he came up with the same date and the same letter. So I said, okay. So submitted the letter to the Library of Congress and got the rights back. And I've been hearing a lot of stories from writers who say, "Oh, I tried to do that, my lawyer screwed it up, and now I got to wait another 35 years." And or what I hear mostly is, "Wow, you can do that? My 35 years passed, and I didn't even know about it." That's what I hear the most. Um, the people who are doing it, the guy with the Terminator, Avatar, the new Spinal Tap movie. The reason you're seeing a new Spinal Tap movie is because Rob Reiner got the rights back after 35 years.
Oh wow!
Was able to make a new Spinal Tap movie. Um, so the other stories I'm hearing, newspapers and magazines want to do articles on the big bad studios, really pounding down the writers. That never happened with me in Disney. Disney always treated me really well.
Right.
I never had a problem with them. They did me a great movie based on my characters, and when it came time to revert the rights, they knew that there was nothing they could do about it. There were no hostilities. There were no threats.
That's nice.
It was all very amicable. In fact, they accepted it a year before it actually happened. They knew that it was going to happen, and a year before it happened, they started telling their vendors, "Don't start any new Roger Rabbit merchandise because we no longer have the rights to that character." And then when the date came, it was just basically another day. I mean, the skies didn't part, and I didn't fall into a hole and down to hell. I mean, nothing happened. It was just done. And now we're looking at making Roger Rabbit projects. We're looking at a live action Jessica Rabbit movie based on my fourth Toontown novel, Jessica Rabbit Serious Business. We're looking at a sequel movie. We're looking at a couple of different TV series, one for adults, one for kids. Plus, we're looking at merchandise, dolls, T-shirts, whatever you got. Plus, my own personal favorite, pinball machines. Mostly because I want one for my office.
That's amazing.
Now that I've got the rights,
That'd be so cool.
let's do something
Yeah, why not?
that I can play with.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting.
I love how this has a happy ending with the creator like having the rights gained back to them because I hear so many stories about creators in the past. For example, like Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel for Superman. Like they never
Oh, poor
received
guys. Yeah,
their
poor guys.
rights back.
See, those are the guys that this law was meant to help. It actually, the law came into being because songwriters petitioned Congress. Apparently, songwriters have a big lobby in Congress. And songwriters petitioned them and said, hey, we sold our songs to publishing companies in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they made a ton of money, and we would like to get our rights back. So Congress passed this law and included writers as part of the law. But yeah, the guys who did Superman, I mean, so many of the comic book artists.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I know Bill Finger, co-creator of
yeah,
Batman.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm really sad that more writers don't know about this.
Hmm.
Um, and like I say, if the 35-year date comes and goes and you don't petition for your rights back, tough luck. And the studio's not going to come and say, hey,
Right. Yeah.
35 years, you want those rights back?
Right.
It's not going to happen.
So it has to be a specific. It's like just one day, and then that's it, or is it throughout that?
Well, it is the day. It is
wow.
the day. 35 years to the day
Wow.
after you sold the rights. All right, and in my case, I sold them the rights to Who Censored Roger Rabbit, and then I thought that was going to be the day, and I thought it was going to be the day that the movie came out 35 years, but it turned out to be the day 35 years after I sold them my second novel, Who Plugged Roger Rabbit, because I gave them a lot of the same rights. So that was 2 years later than I thought it was going to be. But the date was June 23rd for those of you who care about esoterica. And it has to be it has to be the exact day.
So was that this year? Was that June 23rd of 2025, or was that
It was last year, actually.
last year 24?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We've had it for a while, and it takes. I begin to see why it took 10 years to make the movie the first time. Movie making is a slow, laborious process. Oh my God. I mean, just getting somebody on the phone can take you 2 weeks. And
So many moving parts.
my requirements, the guidelines I set down for everybody who's involved in this, any projects that we do have to be at least the same quality as the movie or better.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the fans want.
Right.
They don't want a schlock ripoff. They don't want something that's been half-assed. They want something that's quality and as good as the original, which means it has to have a great story,
Right.
great actors, great cast, great production staff, great directors, great writers. Everybody has to be great, and it all has to come together. And I won't approve anything else. So it takes a long time. It takes a long time to put together a good team. I had no idea, but some actresses that we want to talk to for Jessica are booked up for 3.5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Crazy.
it's
And
crazy.
and that first movie's such a high bar. The hit.
A high bar. Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, no question about it. Some of the things that we did then would be easier now because I'm not going to do CGI. I don't want Roger to be a CGI character. I want it to be a 2D animation character. But that kind of animation is now easier and less expensive than it was then.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah.
I just watched Lilo and Stitch, the new Lilo and Stitch movie, which I thought was pretty good. The animation and live action
Oh, right.
combined was pretty good. And, Roger could, surpass that.
Right.
That would be good.
Right. I'm looking more forward to a sequel to
Me
Roger.
Lilo and
too.
Stitch.
Yeah, Lilo and Stitch remake. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's like, to hit that bar too. It's like trying to work with the right people and everything, and that's going to take like some time to organize.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, like I say, these people have are booked out for 3 to 6 years, and to find the right director, the right actor, the right writer, and to get them all, in a time. I don't want to wait 6 years. I'm not getting any
Yeah.
younger, believe me, and I don't want to wait 6 years. And I don't want to say, okay, I'll get in line, and 6 years down the road we'll do this movie. I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
So it's a production hassle, and that's why producers are producers, because they deal with that. I don't deal with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like even just getting cameos in the movie could be a whole big hassle. I mean, you were talking about Warner Brothers and Disney kind of fighting heads until Spielberg was involved, so I could see
Yeah,
that being
yeah, and one of the things that I want to do is I want to have cameos with characters from other studios,
hmm
and in some ways that will now be easier because Roger was such a great success.
right.
Uh, in some ways, it might be harder. I don't know. The other thing that the fans seem to want is they want anime characters in the movie, and
Mhm.
I'm still wrestling with whether or not that's going to be possible. I don't, because if we said it in 1946, were there anime characters then? The Jessica Rabbit movie is set in modern times, and so
Oh, that'll be fun.
there can be anime characters in that.
Right.
But there's a lot. There's a lot you have to think about, and a lot to do.
Is it so? Is the Jessica Rabbit movie? That's the next project that's kind of in the works right now?
Yeah, again, it depends on who comes available, when, and how. Um, it's going to be a toss up between the sequel movie
hmm
and the Jessica Rabbit movie,
Right. I see. Well, I'm
and,
looking forward to both. That sounds
or
amazing.
both. Yeah, and the TV series might come off the rail and pass everybody and cross the finish line first. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell, but there will be other Roger Rabbit projects. That's a given. That's a
Well,
given.
well, you have to. I mean, I'm sure there's so many different things you have to go through. But like, would you be working with a studio, or would it be like under kind of like your own helm? Like, how would you like?
My own studio, Wolf
Yeah.
Studios.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you
No,
could do that.
that's one of the things. That's one of the things that we have to deal with.
Right.
The studio that's involved could be Disney.
Mhm.
I would love to work with Disney again. I mean, I have no problem with Disney. It could be Warner Brothers, could be Amazon, could be Universal, could be anybody. It all depends on availability. Um, the stars involved, because a lot of times stars have contracts with certain studios, and it's juggling. I mean, it's juggling
Oh,
with
I'm sure.
billion-dollar juggling.
Right. Well, I'm glad you have the rights. And I'm glad it's in the right hands, and I'm really looking forward
Yeah.
to the future projects and the future of Roger Rabbit. It seems like he definitely has a bright future.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, I have to ask you. I know you received lifetime tickets to Disneyland. Did
Mhm.
you? Do you go every year, or do you go frequently?
Well, they were worried I was going to go every day, uh, and we got them, and we didn't go. And the movie was getting ready to come out. It was 1988. The movie was getting ready to come out. We had gotten the tickets in 1980, and I told my wife, I said, we got to go to Disneyland and use these lifetime passes, because if this movie comes out and it's a bomb, they're going to shoot me at the gate. So in 1988, before the movie came out, we went to Disneyland, and first time I'd ever been, and it was magical. I mean, it was magical. It wasn't the uh, money making merchandise vending machine that it is today.
Right.
I mean, it was fun and it was homey, and I had the best time of my life.
Oh. Oh no. Why did that happen again? Well, another technical issue. I don't know why that happened. That's so weird.
It's hours he said that. Ooh.
What did you say?
It was his electrical powers that he's.
Oh, that's it. All right, start singing.
What's the song they sing at the end of Roger Rabbit? They're like walking back into Toonland. They're like everybody's arm in arm.
I don't know. I just know they sing. Oh, here. Oh, he's back. Okay.
I didn't touch it.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's
I
going
didn't
on with
touch anything. It
that.
wasn't me. It
It's the
was
magic. It's the electrical powers.
It's definitely that. It's definitely the electrical issue.
so. You know, realistically, I don't need a lifetime pass. I don't need a pass at all. I call my contact at Disney and say, hey, I want to come to Disney World. I want to go through the animation studio down there, talk to the animators. I want to go to Disney World. I want to go in the underground facility, and I want to meet all the Roger Rabbits. And they set it up for me. I really don't need my lifetime passes. In fact, I don't even know where they are anymore. They used to be like two little passes. I don't even know. But I've never needed them, and I've been to Disneyland lots of times, although not recently. Not recently.
So I have to ask you too. So when I know Roger Rabbit came out, it's a bit smash hit. I know they started to use the Roger Rabbit costume at the parks itself. Did you go to Disney when Roger Rabbit was like frequent there? And
I have a black and white picture of me with Roger Rabbit in front of Cinderella's castle, and it is the first picture taken of Roger Rabbit at Disneyland in a costume,
wow,
and it's me and him. Um, I did a book signing at Disneyland, and they brought out the Roger Rabbit, who was shilling for me out front, getting me to come in and sign my books, and um, uh, so I have gone underground, and when the movie came out, I said I wanted to go underground and see the underground facilities where all the characters change their clothes and pop up, and they said, "Oh, you can't do that. That's not permitted." So I had to call Michael Eisner, and Michael Eisner says, "Yeah, let him go." So I went down, and um, the reason they didn't want you down there was because they didn't want you to know that a lot of the characters, like the male characters, Mickey Mouse is a woman
right.
because she's smaller. And I met all the Rogers. There were like six of them, I think, and they were incredible because they had all the mannerisms
Yeah.
and they have to learn how to sign Roger Rabbit with the big gloved hands because people are always asking for autographs, and it was pretty fun.
Do they all have the same kind of signature like with the Rogers? Do they have the signature have to match the other actor?
No, that would be taking it to the nth degree.
That's
They
so
just signed Roger R, and whatever it looks like, that's what it looks like.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Gary Wolf. Thank you so much for coming on. Callie, do you have any other final questions or anything that you have for our guests?
Oh, she's frozen.
You were
She is frozen.
Jessica.
Can you repeat yourself?
We're able to make Jessica I guess not.
Oh wait,
Is it
now we can
working
hear
yet?
you. Yeah, say that again.
Okay. If you were able to make the live action Jessica Rabbit, who would you pick to play her?
Live action. Well, I have a list. I have a list. And I'm not going to tell you who's on the list, but you can probably figure it out. And I am thinking on my website, I mean, on my Facebook page mostly, you can go there and follow me on Facebook. Uh, I am going to start a little, not a contest, but just a suggestion box asking the fans who they would like to see be the live action
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Rabbit. Uh, I have a hunch. I already know the results, uh, but yeah, I do have a list, and I have personally talked to everybody on the list. So it's
Oh,
wow.
one of the few
amazing.
perks
That's
that I never thought would happen.
amazing.
The other perk of doing what I do is that every single day I get probably 6 or 8 photos sent to me either through email or mostly on my Facebook page of young women cosplaying Jessica. So if somebody
Mm-hmm.
had told me when I was 15 years old that there would come a time when every day 6 to 8 beautiful women would be sending me pictures of themselves wearing a low cut red dress, I would have written the book a whole lot sooner.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
first. Yeah, that's
totally.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time.
All right, just give a short plug for myself.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
Go to my website www.garywolf.com. You can read all about me, buy my books, which I recommend everybody do because they're works of towering genius. Um, and also check me out on Facebook. I post a lot of stuff on Facebook. You can find me pretty easily. I think it's Gary period K period Wolf, and you can find me pretty easily.
yeah. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Awesome.
This was a blast. I really
My pleasure. Hey, I had a
This
good
was
time.
really fun. Thank you.
thank you so
Yeah, I
much.
really appreciate it.
All
Bye,
right, see you
everybody.
guys.
Bye.
So now we're officially done.